The year is 2019, and British rock band Muse are on a roll, having released their 8th studio album Simulation Theory a year ago, and just having finished their highly cinematic and experimental world tour to accompany the album. Muse were getting ready to get back into the studio to write their 9th album. After such an experimental album like Simulation Theory, the band wanted to go back to the heavy rock sound they were known for back in the day. However, a lot had changed since the band's glory days in the early 2000s. How would they be able to come up with the same energy they had around 20 years ago? It's almost like the band needed a massive shift in the structure of the Western world. An event that would be so cataclysmic that it would spark the same rebellion from within that made the band so popular in the first place. But who am I kidding? There's no way that could happen in today's day and age. What could possibly go wrong? There's a lot that happened in 2020 and the years since. It was the culmination of years upon years of political disdain, gradual polarization and negligence of crucial elements of our society. While humanity is met with a crisis unlike anything the world has felt in generations, it shows the true nature of mankind in this digital age. How even a small situation can be the straw that breaks the camel's back and escalates into something that will divide the entire world. And it's exactly with that thought process that Muse went back to the studio and started writing what would end up becoming their next album, Will of the People. On August 26, 2022, Muse released their 9th studio album, Will of the People. The album is about the decline of our society and how it sparked a rebellion within the people to stand up for themselves. In this video, we'll be exploring the world portrayed in this album to see if we can put together a storyline or any story threads of what inspired and transpired in this album. We'll start from a surface level analyzing the songs on the album before delving deeper into the world with the music videos, promotional material, and the world tour, before finally trying to put together all the pieces we have in front of us. So strap yourselves in as we have a lot to discuss. The album opens with the anthem-like title track, Will of the People. The song is about how the people have had enough of the status quo. They're tired of the way they've been treated. They want to make a change. It's time for the revolution to begin, to get rid of the old political constitutions and start anew, with the will of the people at its core. But the song isn't all about the good side of this mentality, but also shows a dark side that it can have. Throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which refers to the idea of throwing out the bad but taking a good thing with it. Or how one of the lines in the chant, the line of people, is replaced by sheeple. We all want to unite under this idea of change, but the question is how far it should go before the will of the people is turned against themselves. Compliance. We just need your Compliance is a catchy 80s inspired synth rock song, taking the perspective of the people already in charge in response to the uprising we heard in the album opener. This song functions as propaganda, how all we need to do is comply and stand in line to be able to get back to a sense of normalcy in the world. After all, the person whose perspective we explore in this song sees the people just as cattle they have to control, like they need something to look up to and guide them to find their path in the world, that independence isn't what they actually need, and rather what the people desire most is comfort. And the final line in the outro I think says this best, that fear is controlling the people and they should just give in to this power from above and be saved by them instead of taking their fate into their own hands. Liberation is a powerful Queen-esque ballad, which functions as the people's response to the message sent from the higher power in the previous track. It's about how they feel like they've been silenced and that it's time to make the people in charge realize that. However, it also displays that the people are pleased that they've finally been able to unite in this combined hatred to abolish the state of political affairs. These people, who might have been on the complete other end of each other politically, were able to unite under their one common enemy, their one single disdain. So in a way, the rulers have caused this to happen to themselves. One Stand Down follows this up by being all about standing up for yourself against the ones who have suppressed you. In the context of the album, this would be in the perspective of one person who takes the injustice against them as a personal attack, and responds this by taking a personal perspective in the response, by taking the counterattack and using their own methods back against them. In Ghosts, we catch a break from the tension-filled introduction of the album, and it's a soft track with only Matt's vocals and a piano. It's a song about the people who lost their partner in the COVID-19 pandemic. How death does not only separate you from the one you were the most close to, but now you're also completely alone and in isolation due to the crisis in the world around you. The cost of just a single human life can often be forgotten in the grand scheme of an ongoing conflict. But every soldier and every civilian that's lost in the strive for victory has someone who's waiting for them back home, who now has to deal with losing what was most important to them. And then the mood completely switches with this genre-defying Halloween-themed song. The lyrics are filled with horror references, many of which I'll come back to once we discuss the music videos. But the main theme of the song is about feeling like you're being manipulated, taken to the tune of this Halloween anthem to really accentuate the horrifying feeling it can lead you to. In the context of the album, it mainly represents the ability to stand up to those you feel the most attached to and admitting that the world around you is horrifying. Kill or Be Killed is the heaviest song Muse has written in decades as they go all in on the metal sound, with a double bass and the growling taking center stage. The lyrics are about a person who's grown detached from the world around them, how the only thing left in their mentality is to strive for their own survival, no matter the cost. It's the complete opposite of Ghosts, how this perspective has no remorse for any other beings it encounters along the way. All morals and ethics are out of the window as desperation takes over. Verona is a massive reference to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which takes place in the Italian city which the track bears its name from. It's about how no matter the circumstances around you, love will prevail. In Romeo and Juliet, this is because of the conflict between the characters' families. In Verona, it's about the ongoing conflict for freedom having escalated around them, and how some people just want to be able to love each other again, disregarding their environment, because our desire for love must overcome this circumstance for human nature to take its course. Euphoria is a spark of energy and hope as the penultimate track on the album. It's about how people strive for some sense of joy in a world that seems to have slowly but surely turned darker and darker throughout the album. The pain has become overwhelming, as we all need something to give us hope again. From a writing perspective, a lot of inspiration was taken from the lockdowns, how people wanted to get their sense of self back after being isolated for so long. And this sentiment flourishes in the album's perspective too.
Are we playing together?
And then we have the song title, which will make sure that I will not be able to earn any ad revenue on this video. It's about how the state of the world has overwhelmed us, and how rationality is taken out of the picture. When one looks at the world, one can't help but feel the dread affiliated with it. How wars, natural disasters, and pandemics will always come out to destroy our way of living, because it isn't and never has been sustainable enough. There is no hope left, and the only thing mankind can do is delay the inevitable. One day, we will all be dead. One day, there will be no life left on this planet. So, all that mankind can do now is try and fend for themselves, attempt to survive for as long as possible, and only think about themselves. The idea of egoism has almost become a part of our human nature by now. It's time to throw out all the metaphors and say how it really is, that we are fucking fucked. So, now the question remains, what is Will of the People all about? Well, as the band themselves described, it functions as a method of navigation through the increased uncertainty and instability in the world. The album tells the story of various perspectives in a world that's in a downward trajectory, from the dismay regarding the state of politics, to the response by those in charge trying to hold on to their power, the power of uniting with your former enemies with a common goal, the sadness regarding those we lost along the way, the anger and hatred taking over, the feeling of letting love prevail, to that the feeling of resistance is futile in a world that was doomed from the start. All of which are shared by one single will, the will of the people. Now that we've discussed the songs themselves, it's time to take a look at all the media related to those songs the band made, as this is where we usually get the combined ideas from the band and the various directors to fully bring the story to life. I will be talking about the music videos in order of appearance on the album. I will not be discussing the lyric videos, performance videos, or the music video for Kill or Be Killed, since it only consists of live footage from the tour, which we'll discuss more later. But once again, it all begins with Will of the People. In this music video for Will of the People, we follow the storyline of the citizens of a city going out into the streets to riot. All the people are wearing this mask, a mask which we'll see all over the imagery for the album. These masked individuals have been dubbed hackers, but throughout the rest of the video I will mostly just call them the masked people. This is also the first time we see this symbol, a symbol representing the phrase Will of the People, putting together the abbreviation of that phrase and putting the letters of each into one symbol. We'll see this symbol a lot from here on out, as it gets used as a sign to mark the fight for freedom by the people. The masked people then go out to the streets to protest against an organization called the Ministry of Truth. We get to know quite a lot about this ministry right away from this music video by seeing this chat-like symbol. We can see the symbol here as our introductory character that leads the service to a social media site called Social that also uses the same symbol. We can see the people tear down the statue holding up a weight scale which is supposed to represent equality. Judging by the actions, we can assume that the Ministry of Truth aren't exactly the bearers of truth they're made out to be. The people then make their way to the Ministry of Truth building, where they enter and destroy all the servers there. In the end of the video, the people drive out to the 3 massive sand sculptures out in the desert near the city. The statues are the heads of the 3 band members, who then get torn down and vandalized. And this is also what ends up becoming the album's artwork, but we can also see that it's the band members themselves that are the ones tearing it down. So this video leaves us with a lot of questions to begin with. What are the statues for? And what is the Ministry of Truth?
Compliance. We just need your
Compliance is a story told backwards. How all it takes is a spark to light a massive fire. The music video has a much darker tone, taking on a dystopian vibe. Here we can see more of the masks, including the mask of the people that we saw earlier, but also a new type of mask, a sort of skin mask. We first see the skin masks of what seems to be the band members, but later also from various other people all over the video. Everyone has a mask on, almost as if to indicate that no one is acting like their true self. They're receiving pills that fall from the sky, and it seems that everyone is moving in a singular direction, with the exception being the 3 people with the band's mask on. In general, the music video portrays a different picture of the city than the one we saw in Will of the People. But it also could be that this music video is taken from the antagonist's perspective, in this case being the Ministry of Truth. We'll come back to this idea later, but we have a lot more to discuss first. Won't Stand Down's music video is a complete departure from the previous ones, in which we see a very different version of Matt. or at least a different version of a skin mask of Matt's face, as we can clearly see his eyes behind the mask here. This version of Matt has long grey hair and is strapped to a wheelchair, at least for the start of the video. From now on, I'll call this man Darth Matt because it sounds funny and I don't know what else to call him. So, Darth Matt is helped onto the stage in front of a crowd of people, all once again wearing a different kind of mask, which Darth Matt is able to control with a sort of neuron connection he's able to use to make himself stronger. Essentially, he uses a sort of mind control to gain the will of the people in a way to empower himself, as he turns into a completely different being by the end of the breakdown. We can see Darth Matt peel off his mask during the brief flashes in the music video, which includes more than just a few terrifying still frames. This is now the transformed Darth Matt, who has taken off his skin mask and is also wearing that oh so familiar mask of the people, as he ascends up into the sky. This video can be interpreted in so many ways, as a way for this character to use the will of the people to essentially strengthen himself into some sort of godlike being, or a way how he's been able to overcome his struggles of being paralyzed to finally rise up to the sky and become free, with the mask representing he's finally found his freedom. Halloween is filled with references to various horror media, thanks to Juan Corpatan for putting together a great list of all the references in this video that's available in the comments of the music video, with a few of the references shown on screen right here. But we're here to talk about the implications this video has for the rest of the album. For an example, we can see a man jump out of the haunted house and into the music video for Compliance, which is most likely just a small reference, but it further connects the music videos together. But the main puzzle piece of this music video is the ending, where we see a man get drowned in the masks of the people around him, like the haunted house was a trap to mess with its visitors' sense of reality and their emotions. And then we get a view of a control room, which is turned into a sort of trophy room with things someone has been able to collect from people he's been able to trap, including the heads of band members, the hand of Dawn, the mask of the people, but most importantly, the power glove from Simulation Theory, a fact which we'll return to later. And then we pan around to see Darth Matt, still strapped to his wheelchairs with the chains holding him down, with him being the one behind it all, presumably to strengthen himself ahead of Won't Stand Down. So, that's all we learned from the 4 canon music videos for Will of the People, and although we can see some of the connections between the videos, we still don't entirely know the full storyline. Luckily, we didn't have to wait long for the answers once the world tour commenced the next year. The Will of the People World Tour was an extensive tour that went on throughout 2023, and even with some elements getting a head start with the Will of the People Festival Tour of 2022. The concept of the show was relatively simple, with the concert starting with Will of the People with a burning symbol behind. During Drill Sergeant ahead of Psycho, we're treated to a different voice being the Sergeant. This time it's something that looks like a bull. During Won't Stand Down, we see a massive stage robot with a mask on make its appearance. Matt named this robot Will, and that's what I'll refer to him from now on. Will has a massive LED screen on the mask, which is able to display various visuals throughout the show, and a hand, which is able to display various lighting displays. Just one song after Will's introduction to the stage, we're treated to our first visual interstitial. This interlude plays the Felsman and Tyler reinterpretation of Kill or Be Killed, and shows the events before the music video for Will of the People. It shows a man, the first man who decided to put the mask on and stand up for himself. He goes up to a building owned by the Ministry of Truth and holds up the sign stating the simple phrase, Will of the People. Then 3 bulls come out of the building and strike the man in the face with a bat. This event is then filmed and shared around the city as more and more people decide that enough is enough and stand up for themselves. We can also see people discuss the video here on this chat feed, in which we can see that the creatures are indeed called bulls, which is why I'll be calling them bulls from now on. The interstitial then shows the process of a man who saw the video making his own mask to join the movement. The first spark has been ignited for the people to stand up for themselves. A few songs later, we're treated to the next interstitial, which is simply called the parkour interstitial. It reuses several shots of the Will of the People music video of the people running around on the streets, but it also shows a massive hologram of a bull, like it wants to strike back against a protester, but like it's too cowardly to go out there and stop it themselves, before Time Is Running Out starts playing, hinting to the sense of urgency that this situation has. During the next song, Isolated System, we also get some new visuals to watch. Here we can see various views of the city with the holograms playing that same clip of the bull striking down the protester. But we also get a better look at this bull, as it gets overwhelmed by the mask surrounding them as he slowly starts drowning out, representing how the people are overwhelming the bulls. And this to the tune of the reworked Isolated System, with more recent news reports discussing today's main topics such as the protests in Iran. But then we get to the final main interlude of the show during the dark side. This video shows the people deciding to go out into the desert and burn down the servers of what's left of the Ministry of Truth, to get rid of their oppression once and for all. We see the aftermath of the city completely in flames, with what seems to be a flare being shot out of the Ministry of Truth's building into the sky, as a sort of final Hail Mary by the Ministry to try and get help for their cause. Some cars decide to drive off and follow these flares to see where they end up, but then we end up back on the monitor display of the security cameras of the city, as we once again see our good old friend Darth Matt, with two bulls standing next to him, as he turns off the monitors as if to say that he gives up on the people, that there's no point in battling them anymore. During the dark side, Matt is playing his guitar on Will's shoulder, before Will finally gets covered up again after having been there for most of the show by this point. We're then treated to mostly a light show for a few songs, including a brief driving interstitial of 3 cars driving through the desert, presumably to follow that flare we saw during the dark side. And then the main show ends with Starlight, ending it with an optimistic tone. But the battle is not over. After some time of silence, we hear the simulation theory theme in combination with the JFK interlude from Drones. Right after the line, "Man will be what he was born to be, free and independent," we get the sudden reveal of a second stage robot, a massive bull. This bull has been called Bath, which is short for Baphomet, a deity from Gnosticism that the Templars were accused of worshipping back in the Middle Ages. Since then, Baphomet has become this sort of occult icon and is often described as a sabbatic goat, as seen in these illustrations. Bath makes his grand appearance with Kill or Be Killed, where he shows his power and true intentions with a magnificent light show from his eyes, ribcage and the hands on the edges of the stage, before he is finally defeated in Knights of Sidonia. Bath has fallen, but even after the show is over, he still stands there looming over the audience as the band leave the stage, ending the show. As of today, that's all the content we have relating to Will of the People. 4 music videos, 5 interstitials, and plenty of concerts later, it's looking certain that this era of the band is about to wrap up. So it's likely that we've gotten all the puzzle pieces we need to try and put all this together. But let's start off by mentioning the obvious. There isn't the same level of interconnectivity between every music video like we had with Simulation Theory, where every music video and the movie were all done by the same studio and director. The music video for Will of the People, You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween, and the visualizers from the World Tour are all directed by Tom Teller and produced by Frame 48. However, the music video for Won't Stand Down was directed by Jared Hogan, and the music video for Compliance was directed by Jeremy Durant. So there isn't one shared vision when it comes to all the music videos, but they're still considered canon and connected through one universe by Tom Teller, as the Compliance music video makes an appearance in Halloween, and we see Darth Matt appear in Halloween and in the Dark Side interstitial. Then there's the question between the differences between the music video for Will of the People and tour visuals. For an example, the Ministry building that gets vandalized in the music video is not the same building we affiliate with the Ministry in the tour visuals. This is a different building, presumably also owned by the Ministry. Maybe it could be a sort of headquarters for the Bulls rather than the server room like the one we saw in the music video. But then there's also some interconnected parts, like the statue being torn down in the music video and the same statue being seen here in the aftermath of the Dark Side interstitial. So now we know that there's connections between every video. So let's see if we can put together a storyline. It all starts with that first spark. The first protester that we see in the Kill or Be Killed interstitial. He's a citizen of this city, being controlled by the Ministry of Truth. The protester is the first person to try and protect his anonymity with his mask, as the people watch him from the windows in confusion about what he's doing, holding up a sign that reads "Will of the People" in front of the Ministry of Truth headquarters. He then gets struck down by one of the bulls that emerge from the building, causing the video of the assault to go viral online. More and more people decide that enough is enough, as they decide to protest the assault and take to the streets, which we see in the music video for Will of the People, as they start tearing the city down, taking down the social platforms, taking down the statues, and the servers owned by the Ministry of Truth. This is also where we start following the band members on their story, as they drive out to the desert to tear down the massive sand sculptures of themselves. What exactly the meaning of this has is a little bit unclear. It can be that they used to be a sort of icon by the Ministry, or it could be a representation that you need to give up on your previous affiliations to the world, representing that the world doesn't need idols anymore. We then see the parkour interstitial, where we see a hologram of a bull make its appearance to try and stop the movement. This is approximately when we see the events of Compliance take place, which is a propagandized video made by the Ministry of Truth to try and make the people fall back in line, showing masked individuals portrayed as the band members go against the flow and ending up burning up in flames. I think this can be a pretty strong indication that the Ministry wants these people dead. We then switch perspectives back to the city with Isolated System, where we can see the people triumphing over the bulls and the Ministry, by overwhelming them with the sheer amount and the power in numbers. We see that iconic message by the first protester being spread everywhere to convince more and more people to stand up for themselves, before they manage to drown out the power of the bulls. In the Dark Side, we see the aftermath of their victory, setting the servers of the Ministry ablaze in the formation of that very familiar symbol. We then see a flare being shot into the sky, with some cars designed to follow the flare, which we later on see in the driving interstitial. Then we zoom out to see Darth Matt watching this from the haunted house. We then switch to the music video of You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween, where Darth Matt is essentially trying to trick people who break into this haunted house. We see the people get killed one by one in order to fuel Darth Matt's power. We can see how Darth Matt has been able to collect various trophies from his victims, from their masks to their hands, in preparation to finally be able to ascend in Won't Stand Down. Here, we see Darth Matt being able to manipulate the will of the people against themselves by being able to control their wills to strengthen himself, turning into some sort of godlike being as he ascends into the sky. So, what does all of this mean? Well, in a simple way, it tells the story of how oppression can spark a massive protest and riot against the ones in power. However, in the end, Darth Matt, who is presumably the one in charge of the Ministry, is able to manipulate the wills of the people by using their weaknesses and fears against them. It's a cycle, how even though we feel like we've made progress to free ourselves, in the end, all we've done is caused a worse evil to replace the previous evil. It's a relatively dark ending, but it is the most realistic one. It also matches quite well with the ending of the album, We Are Fucking Fucked. no matter what we do, fighting might be hopeless in a world that isn't sustainable in the first place, as we'll only be fighting for periodic freedom before oppression finds its way back into the picture. The abolishment of power will see that power vacuum replaced by another power, usually more fierce than the last. But then there's a brief theory I'd like to discuss. After all, it seems that there's still a lot of dots missing to fully connect everything together. But what if there's a simple theory that can connect everything? A simulation theory. Oh yes, we are going back to this. Because if you saw Muse live during the Will of the People World Tour, you would have very likely seen the Power Glove from Simulation Theory make an appearance. Just before the end of the main show, before the encore and Bath's appearance, we get Behold the Glove, an interlude from the Simulation Theory film before leading into Uprising, where we can see Matt playing the synth line from that song on the Power Glove. Which would be kinda a strange thing to do on a tour all about Will of the People. Could this just be the band reusing a prop from the previous tour? Or does this actually have a deeper meaning? Because if we look back on the music video for You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween, we could see that there was also a power glove there. There were even 2 power gloves in that music video. Maybe it could represent the 2 different eras of the glove, the one from the Simulation Theory World Tour and the one from the Will of the People World Tour. Now, we know from the Simulation Theory movie that a power glove is considered as the only weapon strong enough to defeat a Murph, the robot we saw during that era of the band. But as we see in the music video for The Dark Side, there are more than just one Murph. So where am I going with all this, you may be asking? Well, what if the world of Will of the People is another simulation within the universe of Simulation Theory, where Bath is sent there as a Murph robot to try and get the people to obey the ministry again? Or what if Will of the People takes place in the real world, where the servers are burned down, maybe those being the mainframe which were referenced in Simulation Theory? After all, in the Simulation Theory film, the Murph robots are referred to as Truth Slayers, and since the Ministry of Truth loves throwing that truth term around without fully adhering to it, it could be that this is a reference to that the Ministry were the ones behind the mainframe and behind the Murph robots. But for now, I can't confirm anything about this, and it has to be considered just speculation. Still, there is a connection between Simulation Theory and Will of the People in more ways than one. The Power Glove, the inclusion of the band members as characters in the story and inclusion on the artwork, and more. So for now, we'll have to put a pin into the story, as this is all the information we have for now. So, now that we've explored every little nook and cranny of this world, let's get back to that first question. What is the world behind Will of the People? Well, in many ways, it always ends up coming back to that mindset of the pandemic, of telling the story of the world in its current unstable state, exploring the injustice, the resentment, and the never-ending power struggle of the Western world. The album itself and the music videos do this in 2 unique ways, but it always comes down to the same core principles, the desire for change. But in the end, how someone interprets that struggle and determination is entirely up to you. Originally, I had a completely different final chapter in mind for this video. You see, I was planning on having an interview with the creative director of Muse, Jesse Lee Stout. However, we encountered some problems along the way due to the nature of his work being directly connected to the creative outlet of the band themselves. Therefore, it was a bit difficult for us to really discuss these things without stepping over any potential legal or time-consuming hurdles, so for now, I'll have to postpone that chapter and see if I can answer the remaining questions in another video. So, for now, I just want to thank y'all very much for having watched the video. I know this video took me a lot longer than I first expected it would take, but the scope of the video just kept growing and growing, and I first started working on and off on this video like I think June or July last year, and I've been slowly reworking it since to this very video that you just saw. So yeah, it's been a struggle, but it's been a fun project to work on, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't worry, I've already started work on my next video. I hope it will be out sometime next month, but I'm not fully sure yet. But besides that, I think that's everything out of the way. So thank y'all very much for watching the video, and have a great day.